President Trump has taken the stand in New York Attorney General Letitia James' civil fraud case against him. According to reporters inside the courtroom, Trump took his chance on the podium to lash out at Democratic prosecutors that he claims have it out for him. Here's Trump outside the courtroom being asked by reporters how the testimony is going. Let's watch.
Trump, how's it going in there?
All right, so Donald Trump there.
Per CNN, during testimony, Trump leaned into the microphone saying, "This is a very unfair trial, very, and I hope the public is watching." Apparently, Trump got so ornery during the proceedings that Judge Engoron asked the former president's attorney to control his client, saying this is not a political rally.
Trump denied artificially inflating the property value of Mar-a-Lago, saying on the stand, quote, "If I wanted to build up the statement like you said I did before you found out just how rich we are, I would have added brand value here and I would have increased it by tens of millions of dollars." Now, I would be the first person to say that of the 4 indictments against Donald Trump, this is the least significant one. Maybe
Yes.
going head to head with the Stormy Daniels,
And I would add that it is literally true that Letitia James campaigned on finding some reason to prosecute Donald Trump. She said the other night in a public statement, she said, "Tomorrow Donald Trump takes the stand in our trial against his fraudulent business. Trump can try to hide his wrongdoings behind taunts and threats, but we will not be bullied out of uncovering the truth." Yes, she is a Democratic prosecutor throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks in her efforts to go after Trump. That's true.
I think that's true. I don't know what you do with that, though, politically, for a couple of reasons. One, because there are now also substantive cases, indictments against Donald Trump in Georgia, in D.C., that I don't think you can do the same political hand-waving about. And two, because on the face of it, he seems very likely to lose this trial because of the initial decision that the court made that the documents were fraudulent. So if I were Donald Trump, I guess I would be using this as an opportunity to say, I've been attacked, I've been stigmatized, and fair enough. This is a political prosecution. This is something that they might not go after a regular person for. This ultimately isn't the biggest crime in the world. And frankly, it's not, to the extent that he's already been dogged by the veneer of being a fraudster. I mean, that was part of, frankly, his appeal as someone who was a reality TV show star. We didn't love him because he seemed to be, the public didn't love him because he seemed to be Honest Abe in the boardroom. It's because he was a wheeler and dealer and seemed to be able to, exploit the system to some benefit. Remember back in 2016, he used to argue, I know that the tax code is fraudulent and I'm going to fix it for you because I'm the one, I take advantage of it all the time. I know there's loopholes to take advantage of it and I'm going to make it more fair for you when I'm president.
I mean, we live in such hyper-partisan times. We've seen the weaponization of the federal government for all sorts of reasons. I think the voters do have a kind of low-level understanding that politics and business is messy, and there's a lot of corruption, and if you really tried, you could find something to tar basically every political figure on this kind of lower level stuff. Then there are the Trump unique and exceptional things that you mentioned in the other states. And I do find it interesting, we talked about the Times Siena College poll from earlier, which showed Trump way ahead, wildly ahead in the 5 swing states, ahead of Biden. And it did ask them whether they think, whether their mind would change if Trump were convicted and sentenced to prison, not in the Letitia James matter, but in the bigger election stuff. And the polls said that it would. It showed enough of an attrition of support in that eventuality that Joe Biden actually would win. He would win those states. It's very interesting. Now, they also don't expect that to happen. I think just 39% of voters in the poll, if I'm reading this correctly, said that they thought Trump would be convicted in those cases.
Yeah, so the New York Times, as part of their analysis of their the poll information, does have an article running on the front page today called "Trump's Indictments Haven't Sunk His Campaign, but a Conviction Might," that is parsing exactly that. It's interesting to me that perhaps the reason is that the Republicans have done a good enough job also tying Joe Biden to alleged malfeasance with respect to his son, that as long as it's all in the realm of accusation as opposed to conviction, that it does seem to be an even Stevens in the minds of some voters. Alternatively, the reason why a conviction might matter more than just the indictments to voters is because the conviction might mean that he cannot serve, just depending on the timing of it. And so it's just an acquiescence to the reality, okay, like logistically this cannot happen, not actually any change in their desire for him to be president or not.
Yeah, it's so crazy though. This has the effect of this is on the democratic process. I mean, this is a candidate, the leading candidate, the very likely candidate for the Republican nomination, and someone who is at least even, if not better. I mean, these poll numbers suggest that he would win, that he would be the next president of the United States. He would be president again. But not if he's convicted in one of these trials. And, I'm not saying anything. Obviously, I think the charges brought in Georgia are quite serious, and at least on his associates reflect some pretty bad criminal behavior, and they're going to try to tie Trump to that. But the stakes, if you're reading these polls correctly, the stakes are literally whether he would win the presidency or not. If you can't beat him at the ballot box unencumbered, so you have to convict him of something, and then polls are showing that's going to change enough people's minds. Those are not ideal, I think, incentives from the standpoint of having a democracy.
Yeah, I mean, here's some qualitative analysis from voters who voted for Trump that was included in this New York Times piece. Kurt Wallach, 62, a registered Republican from Maricopa County in Arizona, says he voted for Donald Trump in 2020 and thought the former president had performed generally well in office, except for the start of the coronavirus pandemic. But now, considering the pending criminal cases, his views have shifted. Quote, if he got convicted, I'd say, great, put him out of the race. Let's get another Republican, Mr. Wallach said. If he's not been convicted, then I'd probably vote for Trump. Dakota Jordan, a 26-year-old also from Maricopa County, did not vote in 2020. He says he would rather not have Mr. Trump in office at all, but given the choices, he would vote for him over Biden absent a criminal conviction.
Yeah.
If he was convicted, there's absolutely no way I can't elect a criminal as my leader, he says.
Yeah. I mean, those are exactly the comments that are probably still propelling the candidacies of your DeSantis's, your Haley's, et cetera, who are saying that, look, these are people who are going to vote probably for Trump, but if it was me, they'd definitely vote for me. And what's going to happen with Trump is pretty concerning. And I could win people he can't, and he might not be in the race anymore. I mean, this is why you do have these people still going after the nomination in the case that something like that happens.
Yeah, it's worth noting, as much as these polls are such bad news for Biden, they're not exactly good news for Trump. His unfavorables are still historically low. He is only benefiting from Biden bottoming out right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I'm Team Biden, I just got to hope that once Trump's the nominee and he's back in the news cycle and some of these other trials, the very serious trials, are underway, and there's just constant reporting and constant reminding of the electorate, because the electorate does not love Trump on the election-related topic. I mean, that really hurt in the 2022 midterms. It's obvious that it hurt in these same swing states that he needs to win. The candidates that were forced by Trump to lean into that underperformed relative to other Republicans. So having that front and center and Trump back in the spotlight and just having to relitigate the 2020 election, which is not something anyone wants to do, it's something a lot of Republicans don't want to do. Could that sink him enough?
Yeah.
If I'm Team Biden, that's, I guess, the chance I'm taking.
And the abortion issue is another one of these that whenever it's on the ballot, whenever it's front of mind for voters, it swings an election for Democrats.
Yeah.
Strategically, I was reminded of this listening to the Daily again this morning, that George Bush, the second, W, intentionally wanted gay marriage to be on the ballot because that was an issue for him that helped turn out Republican voters.
Sure.
And so are Democrats going to enact a similar kind of strategy, really trying to put abortion front and center, hoping that that makes people forget about Israel-Palestine, makes them forget about the economy, makes them forget about student debt cancellation, makes them forget about everything else. It has worked for Democrats in the past. Is it going to be enough this time around?
Or is he heading toward an LBJ situation where images are coming from the Middle East still, and the dissatisfaction with liberals and progressives is high, with minority groups that are part of the Democratic contingent, and then also with more moderate, economic-focused voters don't like the poll. A lot of just non-ideological voters think he's way too old. Republicans obviously don't like him, and he's in a situation where he has pleased absolutely no one, and his poll numbers are maybe where they are right now.
Yeah.
More Rising right after this.